Dummy.
Dummies. Every group has one. If your group of friends doesn't have a dummy in the mix, I'm sure you guys are probably just the exception. But it's a stereotype that lives on, and there's nowhere that it's more prevalent than in cartoons. Almost every single cartoon out there has a dummy in the mix. It livens things up, it keeps things interesting, and sometimes it can be the root of the problems that the other characters have to deal with. So today I've compiled a list of 20 of my favorite animated dummies to find out who are the dumbest cartoon characters out there. I kept it at only one character per show, although there are definitely a few shows on the list where more than one character could be categorized as a dummy. Starting off, we've got Patrick Star from SpongeBob SquarePants. When I think of dumb cartoon characters, Patrick's one of the first ones that comes to mind, but I don't know if he should be. Is he stupid? Yes, but not all the time. There are some moments here and there, especially in the first couple of seasons, where Patrick's let a little bit of knowledge shine. It's not a great amount of knowledge, but it's something.
The inner machinations of my mind are an enigma.
He guided SpongeBob through almost getting his boating license, canonically went to college, and somehow made a working TV out of sand. Patrick is lazy, slow, ignorant, and naive. I mean, the guy literally lives under a rock. But he's not quite as dumb as some of these other characters we're going to be covering. Don't get me wrong, he is dumb. He couldn't recognize his own parents, can't hold down a job, and he even forgot that he ate a chocolate bar immediately after eating it. Patrick is a bit of a tough one. He's so very dumb at times, but he has moments of brilliance as well. I think the scene that really sums it up the best is in the episode Wet Painters, when he comes up with a plan to just, replace Mr. Krabs' first dollar, only to immediately use that dollar in a vending machine. Patrick is pretty dumb, but he's not the dumbest, so I'm feeling like an A tier for him. Sheen from Jimmy Neutron. Now, compared to his friend Jimmy, Sheen definitely isn't the brightest, but I don't think he's as dumb as we're initially led to believe either. He's hyperactive and has almost no attention span unless it involves Ultralord. Put this kid on some ADHD meds though or something, and I think he might be perfectly normal. There's been moments here and there where he's shown he's got a somewhat scientific mind, but like he said,
That's why I decided early on to sabotage my highly scientific mind with cartoons and sugar.
I think Sheen's biggest downfall outside of his attention span is the fact that he's pretty impulsive and a bit out there, but I honestly don't think I'd rank him that high. He's definitely got some moments here and there where he's not quite out of dumb territory, but not nearly as often as some of these other guys, so I'm going to say C tier. Cosmo, Fairly Odd Parents. In the first couple of seasons, Cosmo definitely wasn't the brightest, but he was for sure less dumb. Later in the show though, Cosmo becomes a full-blown idiot. There are of course a few moments here and there where he still has some good ideas,
Wednesday, March 22nd, Cosmo had an idea!
but they became fewer and farther as the show went on. Some highlights of his stupidity for me include sinking Atlantis 9 times, revealing Crocker had fairies, and lastly, granting Timmy's secret wish. There's even an entire episode debating on whether Cosmo is mentally fit enough to live without his mother. Cosmo's kind of a danger to society, and a magical one at that. I think Cosmo is S tier stupid. Dog from Cat Dog. Out of the two titular characters, Dog is definitely often seen as the dumber or more naive of the two. He's a bit of a goofball and can sometimes cause some mistakes here and there, but nothing too overt that really comes to mind. He's clumsy and easily distracted, but I don't know if I'd consider him dumb. But Dog is genuinely smart in his own way and is way more of a people person than Cat ever is. I'm feeling like a B tier for Dog. Twister from Rocket Power. Out of the four main characters, Twister's definitely the least brainy out of the bunch, but I've always thought he was kind of smart in his own right. He might not be book smart like Reggie or Sam or street smart like Otto, but when it comes to video stuff, he's the guy to go to. Always keeping his camera handy and making videos for Otto and even working on Reggie's zine. He's even a part of the AV club at his school. He's definitely a bit gullible and naive and can drop some very out-of-pocket quotes here and there, but I don't think I'd call him dumb. Just a bit different from the rest. So I'm gonna go C tier. Billy from The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. Even though as a baby Billy was considered a genius, that stopped pretty quickly and he became one of the dumbest TV characters to ever grace our screens. I could go on and on listing every dumb thing that Billy's done since it's basically every single episode. He never learns from any of his mistakes, lacking any sort of common sense, and just staying consistently dumb throughout the whole series.
President Lincoln!
Billy canonically has an IQ of -5, being beaten out by inanimate objects. A lot of the characters on the list get moments where it turns out that they actually possess some sort of knowledge that the other characters don't, whether it's to further the plot or even as maybe like a one-off joke. Billy doesn't get those moments. He's always just Billy, and I respect him for that. Billy's an absolute idiot. S tier. Rigby, regular show. Half of the main duo in the show, Rigby's definitely the dumber of the two, but I don't think I'd really classify him as a dummy. He might not be very book smart, initially dropping out of high school before going back later in the show to finish. There's even an entire episode in season 2 about Rigby not being treated well for dropping out, so he tries to make himself smarter by taking a supplement called Brain Max, which, in regular show fashion turns out to be a terrible idea. However, he's shown himself time and time again to be pretty resourceful, often helping the two of them get out of any sticky situation, or even out of working their jobs. He can be pretty clever at times, but he's also really impulsive, lazy, and just completely irresponsible. But even though he isn't the sharpest tool in the shed, I think he's still a pretty resourceful one. So I think I'm going C tier for Rigby. Ed, from Ed, Edd and Eddy. Ed is 100% an idiot, but he's got a few things going for him, like his vast knowledge of horror movies, and for some reason he's really good at identifying chickens. But he is very dumb. I've seen this guy eat a mattress. Ed isn't as dangerous of an idiot as someone like Billy, but I'd consider him probably just as dumb. He's absolutely clueless, talks nonsense half of the time, and if he didn't have the super durability that he has in the show, he would have died from self-sustained injuries like 3 episodes in. I love Ed. He's one of my favorite characters from any cartoon. But is he one of the dumbest characters out there?
You bet your sweet bippy.
S tier. Pinky, from Pinky and the Brain. Compared to Brain, Pinky definitely stands out as having quite a lower intelligence. But honestly, this is another character that I don't think is as dumb as we're initially led to believe. Sure, he's more feeble-minded and more happy-go-lucky than his counterpart, but he has genuine moments of intelligence that I wouldn't even call, a rare occurrence. He's constantly pointing out flaws in Brain's plans, has a vast knowledge of pop culture trivia. That's not to say he doesn't have his faults. He's clumsy, naive, and often throws out some really out there lines. But I guess if my best friend was an evil genius trying to take over the world, I might seem a bit more dull in comparison. I don't think Pinky here is nearly as dumb as some of the others on this list. So I'm going to go with a C tier. Seuss from Gravity Falls. While he may be a bit of an oaf here and there, Seuss is not a dummy. He might not have the sharpest mind, but he's been shown throughout the whole show to be able to handle the practical things in life. From fixing things around the shop, to helping the Pines out in their crazy adventures, to even dropping some real wisdom every now and then.
You ready to blow up these hot dogs in the microwave one by one?
He can definitely be a bit naive and quirky, but he can also be pretty savvy and resourceful at the same time. He's genuinely helped solve problems throughout the series and seems to be able to handle tough situations well too. I don't even know if Seuss really deserves to be on the same list as some of these characters, so I'm going to put him on D tier. Goofy. I talked about Goofy a bit on my Cartoon Dogs video a while back, and yeah, he's exactly as his name implies, a goof. He's clumsy, constantly messes things up, and sometimes has little to no understanding of basic concepts. He might not be the brightest bulb, but he does have his occasional moments of wisdom, especially when it comes to his son Max. I think, like a lot of characters on this list, he's just a bit naive at times. But there's also other times where he seems to know exactly what's going on, but he's just so carefree that he just doesn't burden himself with it. I think the smartest version of Goofy that we've gotten so far has been in the Goofy movie series. In the first movie, he's smart enough to know when Max is trying to trick him and then gets them backstage at the concert at the end. And in the second movie, he graduates college. That's no dummy. However, in other interpretations, he's pretty stupid, especially in Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. I know it's a show for kids, but Goofy is an absolute moron here. So we're gonna go B tier. Kronk from Emperor's New Groove. Kronk is the definition of a himbo. He's often making mistakes in the movie, but most of the mistakes actually end up benefiting the main characters since he's the bumbling henchman. However, I don't think he's entirely stupid. He's a great cook, he can speak squirrel, which is insanely impressive if you think about it, and he's generally pretty capable of doing normal everyday things. He just makes some mistakes here and there, like, switching around the poisons,
Oh, right. The poison for Cusco.
pulling the wrong lever, failing to get rid of Cusco, and ultimately he's the one that defeats Yzma, although not intending to. He's almost not in dummy territory, but he's made enough mistakes that he has to rank somewhere on here, so I'm going to put him on B tier. Michelangelo from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Mikey is the most laid back and carefree of the turtles, and he's definitely a bit of a goofball, but I wouldn't count him out. Yeah, he can drop a few doozies here and there that have you questioning his intellect, but all in all, the fact that Mikey is not only adept at being a ninja, in fact, being possibly the most talented out of the 4 brothers, But when he loses that unserious side, Mikey becomes an absolute force to be reckoned with. He's usually a fun-loving goofball and is often cracking jokes and not taking things too seriously, but Mikey's no dummy. D tier. Gurr from Invader Zim. Once again, we've got a sidekick to an evil genius, so in comparison to Zim, who isn't even that smart in his own right, Gurr's kinda dumb. But I think a lot of it comes from just how erratic and random he is. There's simple concepts that Gurr can't quite comprehend, like how to blend in, and even the mission that he and Zim are on half the time. He'll have random outbursts where he says something completely nonsensical, gets distracted very easily, especially when it comes to food, and has even messed up Zim's plans here and there. He definitely lacks some common sense and he's extremely unpredictable, but this randomness can actually lead to some moments of clarity and wisdom, although they're pretty few and far in between. I think I'm going to put Gurr on B tier. Butters from South Park.
That's me.
I don't think I'd consider Butters dumb. He's gullible for sure, he hardly ever seems to recognize when the other characters are manipulating him, and even on the rare occasion that he starts to put two and two together, he still usually ends up going along with it because he's such a trusting person, when he really shouldn't be. He's been tricked into traveling to Mexico, becoming a supervillain, and even unknowingly becomes a pimp at one point. He's just too trusting and naive, especially with so many characters around that are willing to just take advantage of that. So I'm going to put Butters on C tier. Ralph Wiggum from The Simpsons. Ralph is a being that exists on his own playing field. Sure, we've got some absolute bona fide dummies on this list, some might even call idiots. But Ralph is just on a whole new level. Everything that comes out of his mouth is hilarious nonsense.
Class, in what year was 1 plus 1? The answer is the Amazing Ralph.
He's constantly putting himself in harm's way. And I can't think of a single smart thing that Ralph has done, and I watch The Simpsons like every single night. He's pretty innocent when it comes to his dumbness though, never really causing problems for other characters, and he's usually got a good heart about things. But Ralph is an absolute dummy. From not fully understanding the English language, which has led to some of the best quotes in the entire 30-year run of the show.
Hi, Super Nintendo Chalmers.
I love Ralph. He's not only one of my all-time favorite animated characters, but I think he's the dumbest person on this list by a large margin. Ralph is going past S tier into Ralph tier. Jeff Fisher, American Dad. Now, there are plenty of people out there who partake in the devil's lettuce that don't really let it affect their intelligence. Jeff is not one of these people. Jeff is your typical stoner, he's pretty lazy and spacey, but I feel like calling him dumb might be a bit of a stretch. He's definitely pretty clueless most of the time, but he's also stony baloney 24/7. Jeff is oblivious to almost everything going on around him, from Roger being an alien to pretty much any sort of danger that the family's in. He does have a few moments of clarity here and there, especially when it comes to helping out the family. I feel like if he just put down the pipe, he'd probably be quite a bit smarter. But hey, he's happy and that's all that matters. I'm gonna go C tier. Gene, Bob's Burgers. Out of the three Belcher children, Tina got the book smarts, Louise got the street smarts, and Gene's got whatever Gene's got going on. But that's not really a bad thing at all. He might not be the most well-read or even have the most common sense. I mean, he does mess things up by losing his focus so often that his family started referring to it as gening out. But I think he might secretly be one of the smartest ones in his family. Not in the traditional sense, at all. But Gene is immensely creative. Whether he's making music or just coming up with some strange out-of-the-box way to keep himself entertained. And honestly, there's been so many times where Gene has actually come through in a surprising way. Gene's not dumb. He's different. But that's a good thing in my opinion. Yeah, he can say some really out there things and gets really easily distracted, but Gene's just doing what Gene does, and I fully support it. D tier. Peter, Family Guy. Not only is Peter an absolute idiot, but he's a harmful idiot, constantly endangering his own wife, kids, and friends. Almost every single episode, he's consistently proving himself to be dumber and dumber as time goes on. I could probably fill a book with all the stupid things Peter has done, and I have a feeling he might not be able to read it. And you might think he's so stupid that he doesn't realize how he's harming everyone around him, but I disagree. I think he's just at the cusp of smart enough that he just doesn't care, and that's worse. That's not to say I don't enjoy the show or anything, but Peter's definitely a moron, and there's no question about that. There's moments here and there where he comes off a little bit intelligent, especially when it comes to like pop culture things, but more often than not, he's a grade A dummy. So let's go A tier. And last but not least, we've got Fry from Futurama. Now, being flung forward in time 1,000 years, anybody would be out of sorts. But Fry's not just anybody, he's dumber. He's not a complete idiot, there's plenty of moments throughout the show where his subtle common sense has come in handy, and he's generally pretty good at dealing with other people, especially his friends. But he's definitely a bit dim-witted. But honestly, he kind of just lacks any sort of awareness of whatever situation the crew is in, and he's just kind of ignorant. But even through his dumbness, he does often end up being the one to save the day, and unlike so many other characters on this list, he seems to actually learn and grow each time, little by little, but what matters is he actually learns throughout the show. I think I'm going to go B tier. And there you have it, my ranking of cartoon dummies. Which character do you think is the dumbest? And let me know if I missed any of your favorite cartoon idiots. And remember, if you don't have a dumb person in your group, that's okay. There probably just isn't one, right? Hey, I'm not the dumb friend, right?
No way, man. You're the ugly one.
Oh, thank God. And hey, whether you're a dummy or not, the Secret Ham Society is always open to anyone of any sort of intelligence. You can watch all my videos ad-free, vote on video topics, amongst other fun, not dumb things. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.